All right, we're going to go through and see if we can get the MLA citation down a little bit tighter. After the work that was done by the class yesterday, I think there's some things that we need to go over so that people can get it done fast and quick the first time, not the second time. So the first thing we need to do is decide if the site has an author or not. So here we have the flow of history site that you saw yesterday. And at first glance here, it doesn't appear that there's any author. There's nothing up here, there's nothing down here, but, all right, here we go. What you do find, however, is perhaps this down here. I should say this over here. This looks like it might be an author, but it's not. He's the webmaster. Chris Butler is the webmaster. He's simply in charge of making sure the site is running the way it's supposed to be. So at the moment, we have no way of determining whether or not this site has an author or not. So we're going to go with that this site has no author. Clearly someone did write it, but this page does not seem to indicate that there's any kind of author for the site. So now taking a look at the MLA citation sheet, we have decided that we are dealing with a site with no author, and so the first thing we need to do is figure out what the title of the document is. Or I should say the next thing we need to do is find out what the title of the document is. So now we take a look at the site. At first glance, there are a couple of options for what the possible title of the site might be. Okay, your first thought might be to come up here, okay, but that's the URL. Your second thought might be to come, Your second thought might be to come over here, okay, the flow of history, a dynamic and graphic approach to teaching history. Well, that looks like it might be a good choice, but what we were interested in when we went to this web page was about absolute monarchies. And although this is a huge title, it doesn't deal with what we were talking about. So now we see absolute monarchies here. Perhaps this is a better choice. Some of you in your web browsers, and this web browser doesn't show it, but up here at the top somewhere, it'll show you what the title of the page is, or at least what the webmaster has made the title of the page. And so we'll see that this is the title of the page, this right here. So this is what we have to deal with. So this is where we have to start paying attention to the tiny little details. You'll see that to put in the title of the document, we need to have the quotation marks and a period inside the quotation marks. So that's where we're going to put in what our title is. Our title was Absolute Monarchies in Europe, Unit 14, the rise of absolute monarchies in Eastern Western Europe, parentheses, circa 1600 to 1700, parentheses, period, quotation marks. And it's all got to go in just like that. The next thing that we see we have to look for is the title of a larger work only if it's applicable. In some cases we might not be able to find the title of a larger work. But let's go ahead and see if we can do that. So here we are again at the site. Now at first glance it might appear that this is the title of the larger work. And that's a safe guess. I mean, it looks like it's the title of a book, and this is just a chapter in the book. But what you want to do, if I can get this to work, is come up here to the URL. You see all these little backdashes. You want to go back to what's the original domain. So you want to get rid of all those things and see where it takes you. And in this case, it takes you to the Flow of History welcome page. So you have two things now that seem to indicate that the larger work is the Flow of History. We have the same title up here, and it seems to be here in the URL, but the URL is not the title of this larger work. This will be the title of the larger work. And again, for some of you, the web browser up here at the top, it'll go ahead and show you what that larger work is. So for our purposes, we're calling this the Flow of History. Now, I know that it has this little subtitle down here, but we're not going to worry about subtitles. We're going to keep it short, the flow of history. Again, we're just giving people breadcrumbs for how to find the information that we found if they want to go backtrack, and this bit right here is enough to do that. Now we're back here at the MLA citation page. So we found out what the title of the work was. We found out what the title of this larger work was. We make sure we have this underlined. This has to be underlined. You have to have the period here at the end. Now it's the date of access. All right, the date of access is simple. It's the date you looked at the page. The internet gets backed up something like, I don't know, every 30 minutes or so. So even if this site goes away and someone wants to verify that you went to the flow of history and it said what it said, even if the flow of history disappears 10 years from now, someone will be able to come back to this date in the, call it the Wayback Machine or Go Back Machine or Time Machine or whatever you want to call it for the internet, and find out that, yep, this site existed, that is what it said, so even if the information's wrong, at least they realize you didn't make it up. You thought you were doing what you were supposed to be doing. But again, must be underlined, must have a period, and the date has to be in a specific way. It has to be the day, 2 digits, the month written out, not abbreviated, and then the year, all 4 digits, and then a period at the end. Okay, a lot of people wanted to just put things like, you know, the month, the day, the year, 12/1/12 or something like that, or what is this, 2/15, yesterday was 2/15/12. Can't do that. You have to have the date, the written out month, the year, and a period. You have to have it that way. So the next bit is easy. You go ahead, you have to find out what the URL was. So the URL, right up here. I mean, everybody I think in the class knows that. Easiest thing to do is to highlight it all, copy, and then paste it into your document. Now, once you paste it into the document, one thing that's going to be tricky or might cause a problem is once you type in or copy and paste this in, you have to add the little carrots, side carrots there, side caret here, and the period. And when you do that, you may turn it into a hyperlink. Now, if you turn it into a hyperlink and you're in Word, if you scroll over this area right here, there's usually a little box with an arrow that drops down and it says undo hyperlink. You click that, hyperlink goes away and you're fine. The problem with leaving it as a hyperlink is that when it prints out, it'll print out underlined, and you'll notice that nothing here is underlined. So you have to make sure that that hyperlink is deactivated. And the master blaster himself, Mr. Woods, probably has a couple other tricks of the trade of how to undo the hyperlink if you can't get this box to come up. There have been times when I've scrolled over this area and no boxes showed up, and I've pulled out my short hair and not been able to do it. But Mr. Woods, I'm sure, has a trick of the trade that can help you out. But again, please make sure that you have the carrots and the little dot, we call it period, at the end. Once you've done that, you are all done. Okay, you are completely finished and you have cited your source. Congratulations. But wait, some of you have forgotten one little detail. You'll notice this is indented. Okay, a lot of you typed it out and printed it out and it was just all nice lines straight up and down, and that looked really nice and pretty and like a box and a square, but that's not how it works. You have to indent it. Now, the easiest way to indent it, I think, is if you go up to your Word document at the top, you see a couple of different things. At the top, you see an arrow that looks like this, and then an arrow that looks like this, and then a little box, and it's got a little dashed line, I think, across the way, and it gives you numbers to tell you how far things are, blah, blah, blah. Okay, what you want to do is you want to go ahead and grab this arrow. Most of the time what will happen is that you'll end up grabbing the whole thing. You'll end up grabbing this whole thing all together, and it'll slide, and you don't want that, so you slide it back, you'll try again, and it'll slide, and you'll slide it back. Okay? This is the piece that you want, just this right here. And I think maybe this tags along with it, I'm not sure, but this is the piece you want to grab. X marks the spot. Once you get that, you go ahead and you drag it over, and then the writing that you have should slide over as well. And then you have what you finally needed. You have the URL with the lower part indented, and if you have more than one line. Let's say you have your first line and you've indented your second line, but your third line for some reason is over here. You've got to get rid of this and you've got to indent it and move it over, okay, so that it is all indented. And then you're indeed done.